Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is.
Listen to the elites tell us how the future is going to be with their Agenda 2030. Listen to this craziness.
In the developed countries, the big winners are countries that have shrinking populations.
You do not even have to have elections anymore because you can already predict, and afterwards you can say, why do we need elections? Because we know what the result will be.
Our primary mission is, in fact, to set a global standard for the world for behavior.
What we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets.
You want the function, you want the service, right? Why do you want to own a cell phone if you can just lease it? And if you lease, why shouldn't you lease your refrigerator or your washing machine or your dishwasher, or why do you want to own it?
I propose putting an end to anonymity on social media.
But if 1 billion people stop eating meat, I tell you it has a big impact.
Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains? And we measure your brain waves.
There's some really interesting research that we can plant false memories in the brain. People believing that they've been at Disney World with characters who are not Disney characters, taking photographs with those characters.
And substituting humans for machines is going to be far easier in those countries that have declining populations. I could argue.
Where are we? We are in this perpetual state where we talk about the things that just gets hotter and hotter and hotter. And I'm actually not surprised that they censor me because I have an eye for this stuff. Actually, I would say we have an eye for it because every morning we get on the phone and we're like, okay, today we're going to go live again. And we're going to talk about more of what is happening in our country. And it leads us down the same path that I think they're afraid of, that we've talked about very, frequently. And that is, we're in a lawless society. Free passes. We talked about it with David Wilson when he was on here on the show a couple days ago. And there's so many free passes happening in government that really it's just a grift affair. They can take what they want, meat off the bone, and there's the haves and the have-nots. And the haves have everything. And the have-nots, well, that's just the rest of the population. And so people rush to be a part of the system and whatever they can have. And you heard him say that we don't even have to have elections anymore. We already know the outcome. They know the outcome. And they've done a lot to take everything away from all of us. But I think we're on the verge of a revolution. We see what's happening in Scotland right now, in the UK, in most of Europe, in Greece, Italy, Australia. The thing that got us here is the same thing that's going to get us out of it. People are waking up at different times, and now they're starting to take away your ability to see news from different states, different countries. They're trying everything they can to silence everyone on the grift and the rot that we experience inside of our government. See, the problem is not what the government takes from us as far as taxes. The problem is that none of it goes towards government. It goes towards nonprofits and entitlements and giving money to people that don't deserve it and illegals and stepping over us while we give people SNAP benefits. And there was somebody that came on and they put up they're sitting there talking about, you can't tell me that my daughter can't have popsicles if I'm on SNAP. Why can't she have popsicles? Why can't SNAP pay for popsicles? SNAP is a program that pays for food for families that are in need. Here's the problem, is that the woman that was on here having this conversation had brand new fingernails that she had put on. Her hair was done. You're not paying for popsicles, you're paying for a way of life. And you have people out there that are barely able to make their bills. Institutional slavery that has gripped our country. And now the people are talking about it, and people like me, people like you, we've had it. We're done being someone else's slaves. Now, in the middle of all that, we get all of these different things that say, hey, listen, you owe us an extra. I got this tax bill for DCF. It says you owe us 17 grand more. So I called the lady. She goes, oh, we just assumed that you had more revenue. And I was like, you assumed wrong. She goes, well, we saw the money coming. I go, wait, hold on, it's a timeout. She's like, well, you have to prove to us that you don't owe us the 17 grand. I said, I just want you to know that you can fuck all the way off. And she said, excuse me? And I was like, you heard me. And you go, maybe you don't understand, but we're the tax, we get to collect taxes. And I was like, come in and audit me. You're going to owe me money. I said, and by the way, I might just push all of our transactions out of the state. I'll literally send, everyone comes in to do a transaction. I'll be like, hey, listen, if you wait an extra 3 days, I'll give you 5% more off, and I will make, but you have to buy it through our store in Wyoming. I go, you guys want to play games. If it costs me less and I have to, go down on what I do and not be the biggest in Colorado, just to prove a point that you don't get to come in and just run roughshod all over our business, we'll do that. The problem is that there are no checks and balances, and there is nothing that allows for the American people to have a seat at the table. We are slaves. They put up cameras on every corner. They tell us that if you go 10 miles over the speed limit, that they can take from you what was never theirs to take. And we get on here and we want to be negative. And the positive part about this, we have great opportunity with our children, with our spouses. We have great relationships in our community, but we can't help but see that they have taken more from us than should rightfully go to anyone. And then, I put on the thing yesterday that, hey, why are you silencing my account? And that must have had to do with me saying the J word on my podcast. And then somebody from them said, oh, we're going to send letters to the social media. We're going to call up our friends that work over at X and say, look, I need you to shut down his ability to have reach. And I know that that's what's happening. I can see it, send people to a particular post, and they're the only people that see it. And it's not just X, it's Rumble. And Rumble, by the way, just so we're clear, we're on Rumble right now. Rumble is in trouble. Their expenses are up. Their ability to collect data is down. Frankly, it's because they're not that bright. I sold out all of my shares of Rumble last night. And the reason why I did is because how do you have confidence in a platform that is taking from you and then tells you that they're a free speech platform and they're going to do more for you, and then they lie about everything? They pick winners and losers. They're no better than YouTube or Meta. Everyone gets to decide who actually gets to have a seat at the table, who gets to have a voice. And I know I'll say this, as untamednation.com goes up and we see this kind of trend of up, and other, we get on Roku and we do other things and we start getting people that are signing up for emails and asking for information, we can tell what the big social accounts are doing. Because it's antithetical that those would go down while everything else is going up. It's antithetical. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. I want to play this, but we were talking about, and this is kind of a continuation. We do have a guest, so I want to make sure that I'm cognizant of his time. And I don't think I've had him on here before yet. But we talked about yesterday about how you pay more because you have insurance. This is third world logic that we've let creep into our state, our country. And we're doing nothing about it. And the reason why they don't want me to say this to you is because it should piss you off. Now, as we start getting closer to working the problem is throwing these assholes out of our country, stopping the grift on the American people, getting rid of all the taxes that we pay, and restoring things to the American people, making sure that they have a seat at the table. You notice I didn't say Republican, Democrat, or Independent. I didn't say any of that. I just said people. Because the American people deserve to have a seat at the table, but you don't. Let's talk about insurance. The fact that it's actually the second biggest bill that any home has in their home. And sometimes it's the first, even above what they pay for their mortgage or housing.
How can I help you? So I think there's a mistake on the bill, but maybe you could help me out. We got a bill, and then we realized that you guys didn't have our insurance, so we sent you the insurance, and it looks like the bill went up.
It went up?
Yeah, the first bill we got without the insurance was $600, and then the second one was almost $1,300.
Yeah, so that the first invoice you received, that's a discount that you receive if you're uninsured. So you're not eligible for the discount since you are insured. And so the bill was $2,342.14. We billed your insurance. Your insurance only paid $1,078.85.
Can I go back to the discount without the insurance?
No, so you're insured, so you're not eligible for the discount.
If I go cancel my insurance, am I eligible for the discount?
No, sir, because we checked eligibility and you do have active coverage for data service.
Oh, I needed to cancel it before I got the service to get the discount.
You're only eligible for the discount if you're uninsured.
Okay, so I'll get cheaper health care if I'm uninsured.
If you're uninsured, you're eligible for the discount, correct?
Is this common? Like I pay for insurance and I end up paying more out of pocket because I pay for a premium? That's wild.
No, this is just a new law that started 2024, AB 716, and the law is if you receive a discount if you're uninsured.
Okay.
So when we first send a invoice to the patient, we bill them as if they're uninsured. If you're insured, unfortunately, you're not eligible for the discount.
Okay, so just if I have the incentives straight here, if I want to pay less for medical care, I should cancel my insurance if my daughter needs life-saving medical care?
I'm not sure. I don't know, sir. You should cancel your insurance. Yeah. I'm just letting you know that discount's only for patients who are uninsured.
Okay, that is special. That is a special law. So there's no way to put that discount onto an insured person. Only the uninsured people get that.
Correct.
That's the state of healthcare. Now, I don't know if you're paying attention, but the original bill came in at $600. Now his copay is over $1,100. And the insurance company paid $1,084 or whatever it was. So the total bill is over $2,000, but if you didn't have insurance, it was $600. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. You have a system that literally is designed to steal from the American people. And it's allowed to happen that way. But if you don't have insurance, they'll reduce it to whatever a normal cost is. That's a system of grift that is designed to steal and rob the American people blind. That's the the Affordable Care Act right there. That's what that is. Make it make sense. Everyone should cancel all their insurance. Oh, that's right. But there's penalties for businesses that have over a certain number of employees if they don't keep health coverage for them. It's the single biggest cost for a business. It increases entitlements by nearly 11% on revenue every year. And if that's not enough, the amount of pressure on the American people, gas prices are through the roof. I am going to tell you something, and I need you guys to listen to me for a minute. The fact that gas is up the way it is right now is a temporary pain for a long-term solution of breaking the chains of, say, Lloyd's of London, the London bank cartels, all the things that are happening. We have to get to a place where we can actually break free from all those things happening that have been going on for decades so that we can have some relief from these global cartels. Now listen to what I just said. I don't like gas prices being up. I don't like enterprise prices being up. But we have a outgoing Fed chair who on purpose did not lower interest rates in order to hurt the American people, in order to hurt us. So the people that were mad at, you want to be mad at President Trump? How about you be mad at the fact that these radical leftists are doing everything they can to try and change the direction of a election so they can put themselves in a position of power and authority so they can do more damage to you. And if what I'm saying is not true, then what do they do in Colorado? The pressure is mounting. It mounts and mounts and mounts, and all of a sudden you get to a place where it breaks. Let's go ahead and put this up. There was a televised Republican debate. Guess what person didn't show up? His name is Victor Marx. Now, Victor Marx is using a series of bots, and now he's saying that somebody else wants to kill him. He put out a video yesterday saying that. Won't show up for debates. Has people go online and just bully other people and act like they're real people. You'll have someone with 200 people that's been around for for 15 years has 35,000 posts. So these are the bot accounts that are out there that start to accumulate. Fake accounts. They're tied to things like Demcast and other marketing arms that are out there that frankly have been doing this for a long time on the political scheme. They're not real people. So they lie and they make themselves look like they're something in order to convince people that they're the right candidate. They lie. He lies. So this is from Scott Bottoms. Tonight's televised Republican debate made one thing clear: Colorado has a real chance for a governor. I'm not running to compromise on the issues that matter most. I'm running to fight for the people of Colorado, for a truly balanced budget, responsible spending, safer communities, parental rights, and a government that puts Colorado families first. Our state cannot keep passing budgets that are broken the moment they are signed. We cannot keep taking resources away from the people who truly need them while funding radical priorities that most Coloradans never asked for. This campaign is about courage. It's about conviction. It's about restoring common sense, accountability, and leadership to the governor's office. It's time to reclaim Colorado. Join me. Let's make history together. Donate now at Colorado's Future. And that's the secure.antidote.com/Scott-Bottoms. And you can go actually find him on the socials. But he was on and he did so well last night. Barb Kirkmeyer did well too, but she answered a question the wrong way. She answered the question the wrong way. And there's a guy named Ross Kaminsky, works for iHeartRadio. Guy, he thinks more of himself than he really does. This is one of the originators of the anti-Semite stuff that when I was spending a lot of money with iHeart, which I don't now. Actually, that's not true. I do, but in different forums now. I don't have to deal directly with iHeart. But he was asked about election integrity. Let's go ahead and put up this Ross status. He put up, in the Colorado GOP debate that Victor Marks again claimed he couldn't participate due to a previous commitment. Barb Kirkmeyer and Scott Bottoms were each asked whether Joe Biden won the 2020 election. Kirkmeyer says yes, the right answer. Bottoms said no, a silly answer. Here's the one thing: if you're trying to appeal to a certain segment of the GOP base, Bottoms' answer is better than, even though it's wrong. If you're hoping you have a chance in a general election, Kirkmeyer's answer is better. There's so much brain damage in the fringe portion of both parties' bases right now. It's really incredible and distressing, Colorado politics. So this clown, this zero that's never accomplished anything in his life, this pencil dick loser, and I'm going to call him exactly what he is, right? That's what he had to say. So I had to say something that I thought was a good answer. And look, I know I just cussed a couple of times. I'm sorry, I'm a little hot. Hot for two reasons. One, it looks like it got fixed right after you stopped to talk about it. All good. Okay, good. They said it's fixed. Here's what I put up about this. Let's put this up real quick. Ross Kaminsky is a flat-out liar. Sat across from that clown in 2021 when he said he had zero knowledge of systems or technology. That iHeartRadio stooge, who frankly has lower ratings and views than I get on a censored platform individually. Low talent loser. I spent 6 years fighting for election integrity, flying all over the country, and it wasn't because it was a mirage. People like Ross who lie to be a part of the cool kids club, aka Club Evil, and betray the American people and steal their voice while treating them like slaves, are everything that is wrong with our country and the society in general. It asked for Denver Channel. You people are, in general. Sorry, I don't know what the asked for part is in there. So you people are despicable, propping up the big lie, which is stealing the voice of the people for your own personal gain. The elections across the country are fraudulent, not some of them, all of them. The gaslighting of the elitists and the CIA needs to stop. And is that what it got to right now, is 110 people that saw it? Or is that as of 10:15 this morning? So X gets to censor me and do whatever they want to me, and Rumble gets to censor me, and to take and I know that it's gonna come down to having to file lawsuits to say, listen, so you guys are committing conspiracy. You're actually doing things to stop me from having a voice. For what reason? And if you're on X right now, I'd ask you to hit the share button, just because why not? Yeah, 153. So I put it up there a bunch of hours ago. Pretty simple thing. I'm talking about the fact that they lie. And 153 people. This is what I talk about. I had 15 to 20,000 people that would look at a post. Now I'll be lucky if 400 or 500 do. And it's not because I go out there and say anything violent, because I don't. It's not because I go out there and say anything that would be wrong, because I don't. I speak the truth. But they want to make they're doing the same thing they did in 2020 and 2021, 2022. We are not living in a free society. And Elon Musk, let's just be real. Let's be realistic, Elon. You're playing party favorites again. And you want to talk about the fact that somewhere along the line that you're doing yourself a public good, but you're not. And here's a post that I had to put up that I think is important. And then we'll bring our guest in. Put it up. No? So I had to put this up because earlier today I had somebody come to me that said, Joe, you have to stop talking to this person, and if you don't stop talking to this person, and you're showing your true colors, because I won't stand on their side and berate and belittle people. So I said, I don't pick sides. I'm in it to fix the party and make the party of the people. You with me? I'm with you. I'm not going to get in the mud or respond kindly to being bullied into scarlet lettering your target. With that said, win with facts, not innuendo. Don't slander others because you think it will turn the weak against your target. That's team evil, and frankly, you can't sit with 1 foot in team evil and 1 foot in team good and call yourself a good person. Mission driven, protect the people, serve and fight. Any questions? Oh, look, 315 people. So you can just tell, like if it's kind of, I could probably put up something that says balloons are red, and it would probably get more people to look at it. So I went from growing dramatically, putting out messaging that was important to people, continuing to do that, to getting to a place where they just hide my posts from everyone. This is social media that says that they're on our side. These are the people that say that they stand for truth, but they don't stand for anything but themselves. We're joined by a guest, Mike Steger. He's a political intelligence and policy expert, brings 20 years of private sector experience in political intelligence. He focuses core efforts on rebuilding American industrial strength and ending the country's forever wars. He co-founded Promethean Action, a political movement dedicated to driving American industrial renewal and backing key political efforts, including supporting the Trump 2024 campaign strategy. I'd love to hear about that. He serves as the author and host of Promethean Overviews, a program broadcast on YouTube, doing deep dive strategic analysis on shifting global orders, intelligent reform, and economic diplomacy. And he does some cool stuff, gives us some cool insight and information. So with that, Mike, welcome to the show.
There it is. Yeah, thanks a lot. Nice to be here.
You know, it's gotten a little bit more, I keep bringing up and talking about the things that are unpopular. Obviously, you've been involved in intelligence, and you've seen what's happened in social media up to this point. But it's distressing when you have 40, 50,000 people that watch your podcast in your own environment on your website, and you struggle to get 300 people with 31,000 people following you on X after being canceled 4 times.
Wow.
To hear the message.
Yeah, that's intense, man. That's an intense process. Thank God you pulled together. We're doing the same thing at Promethean Action. We're pulling together as much as we can because these social media platforms can't be relied upon. And it just kind of depends on what we do in terms of the national political power. If we hold on to it, if we grow our base, then these guys will kind of play nice. But if we don't, we know that the vice is going to come down on all of us. So you did the right thing strategically. But yeah, you just can't count on these social media companies.
You can't count on them because they don't care about the truth. It's free pass, and how do I do the biddings of people in this organization that conspire with others in order to stop the truth or even a different viewpoint from actually getting any traction. That's a controlled society, is it not?
Oh yeah, no, we've lived in a controlled society for a long time, decades.
How do we break that?
Well, it's breaking a cult formation in some sense. I mean, it's been a progress. So, the organization I work with now, Promethean Action, we set it up about 4 years ago. But it was in existence in continuity since the early 70s with a guy named LaRouche. And, the reality is that the World War II generation was aware of some of these questions. I mean, they documented it. There's books written by even leading intellectuals at the time saying you guys are getting marched into another kind of fascist communist control structure. The signs are all there. And this is late 40s. People are already saying this. So the problem is that the World War II generation saw it, knew what morals and values the American society had and needed, but they, when the push came to shove, they let the boomers ultimately take over without course correcting. And once the boomers took over as a generation, this brought, and it wasn't like everybody born in the 1940s and early 50s. I'm not talking about the entire post-war generation. I'm talking the Clintons. I'm talking the people that went to Yale and Columbia and Harvard and the white collar and got their security clearances and played nice and went to the right schools and met the right friends and did the right thing, that became part of this kind of elite crowd that thought they were destined to just rule and govern the country. And they brought in a complete destruction of American values. And so now you have a society that's had a hard time discerning, because the society itself does not present what it means to be an American. It exists within certain families. That's why there's an attack on families, because what do families do? They preserve kind of sacred values. They pass it on from grandparents to children and parents to children. There's a sense of that kind of dynamic. And so it's been preserved in that way. And we even have some institutions we're now reviving. But I think we all saw it. If President Trump hadn't stepped in 2016 and then stuck with it into 24, our country would be torn to pieces. So one of it's just a consistent, sustained political fight. Right now, we are winning. We have taken power. We have broken the brick walls down. There's sunlight coming in. People can see the difference. We're taking actions on so many different levels, from immigration to the industry development to rebuilding our energy sectors. There's a number of things that are taking place. And to me, that's probably the core question. There's a lot Trump is engaged in on restructuring the entire global system. That's going to take a little bit of time. They've set all kinds of kind of briar patch traps in Ukraine, in Gaza. The Iran situation was obviously something that was festering. But the main question for the American people is going to be, are we rebuilding the country? Is there a sense of a growing future for the country? Because I think in the bones of the American people, they know self-government is not simply a political theory. In practice, real self-government, why we fought a revolution and won it effectively and then could keep it. We won and then kept the nation. No other nation's done that. There have been maybe revolutions that have been won against political powers, but ultimately they're co-opted, they're taken over, there's no fundamental change. We won and then kept the difference. We sustained a higher principle. And I think that was on the back of an industrial commitment. And in some sense, that's why globalization has been this great destructive disease. Combine globalization with the green agenda, and you see the fundamental corrosion of the very bones and skeletons and sinews of American culture. Because if you're not productive, if you're not industrial, if you're doing make work, if you're getting bribed to basically look the other way at what you know is to be total economic and cultural vice, if you know that your company or your economic practices are basically destroying the very citizens that make up a self-governing nation, then it's not going to function. You have to have people engaged in daily economic life at the highest levels of institutions, at the lowest level of just basic work, that what we're doing as a nation is going to improve the qualities of life of our grandchildren and posterity. That has to be there. I think that's probably the biggest move Trump has introduced. I think we've got to continue to make it happen. The biggest problem, and I'll stop it here because I've been going on for a little bit, but the biggest challenge on this is that real world change does not happen on media narrative and spin time. It takes real, physical, constructive efforts to begin to rebuild a citizenry, pull people out of these effing ghettos. There's ghettos inside inner cities. There are ghettos everywhere. There are ghettos of the mind everywhere. People have been sucked into a kind of dark age destruction of our country. And to pull people out of that back to a sense of dignity, of integrity, of prosperity, of real wealth, of contributing something, that takes a little bit of time. But the factories are coming in, the investments are coming in, the machines are being ordered. We're going to get back to a manufacturing and productive society. There's more I can say on that. But I think that's the real core intervention long term. If we're going to once again do what we did in '76 and that is not only win a revolution politically, but then at the same time sustain it for generations. So that's my thinking.
Well, it's a lot. And let me ask you a question. When you start talking about solutions, you talking about where we are and even taking it back to the 1940s. And I'm not sure people understand how you unravel this given just the hardening, I call it the sidewalks, that they distract you over here, they go and put sidewalks, they look like they've been there for 100 years, right? So nobody understands that those are systemically being built right behind your back, and then they basically say, well, that's just the way it's always been. And they do this with fee structures, they do this with taxes, they do this with any number of things. I mean, even when we talk about government installations, and they call it the creeping line, right? So you have the fence, you move it 6 feet, move it another 6 feet, by the time you're done, you've picked up 2 acres, right? Municipalities are famous for this across the entire country. Easements that soon become, So how do you unravel it with so many different layers? I mean, we're not talking about individual layers, we're talking about layers upon layers upon layers, a patchwork of social structures and bureaucratic laws and then legislative laws that go over top of that try to harden some of the bureaucratic mess that's been created, just to make sure that if somebody comes in and questions it, they get to stay.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good question.
What just happened? Oh, we lost you there for a second.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's a good
So
question.
how do you undo it?
Well, I think the main thing in my mind is the enemy operates in a non-existent universe. They think they actually can control it. They think these structures, these layers of control, have some reality to them. Our greatest weapon is to realize that they only have an ability to control anything if we allow them to control us. So the main question is, how do you not react to their operations all the time? That's what their game is. Their game is whack-a-mole. Constantly just keep throwing things in there that you think are going to dominate and control the overall political environment. Now, part of that is exposing it so that you wake up more and more people. Now, I've been in this fight full time, since 2001, 2002, since 9/11. And I think a lot of people have gotten into this fight, even more so with COVID and the lockdowns. And so there's been a kind of growing reawakening of the American people. I think that's core. The question then is, it's kind of like someone becomes a Christian, they get baptized. Okay, now they go to church. Okay, well then what? I mean, it's not like being a Christian, being a child of God stops by just, you make sure you go to church on Sunday. The question is, are we going to civilization? So I think the big thing is we've got to force the enemy to play on our terms. And our terms are the real universe. They don't like that.
Mike, let's, this is where we get into, hollow ground, right? It's kind of, you're standing on ice, so to speak. You hope it's really thick, but you don't know if it's thick at all. What does our ground look like? I mean, because people, every day, I sit and tell them, I was like, look, we got to build density first. Density is a coalition of people inside the community that feel like that it's off the rails. I think we're there, right? The problem is that they've separated us so clearly. This is, by the way, why they try to silence me, is that I don't talk about just Republicans. It's like Republicans, Democrats, Independents, pink dinosaurs, kitty cats, Barney, purple dinosaurs, doesn't matter, right? When the community starts to have alignment, then you have unlikely alliances. That puts a whole different type of pressure on those mechanics.
Yep.
But how do we get there?
Well, I think it's the universal. And the universal question of re-strengthening the country, if you want to push back, let's define the enemy. So the enemy, from how I would reference it, there's a couple of different ways you can. Let me just give it more of from the context of globalization. We're talking about large-scale, multinational corporations. That's what the enemy is defending, a system that has no idea of national sovereignty, no idea of citizenry, no idea of God-given rights. They see profit, they see control. And oftentimes, where do you get profits? So you get profits in the drug trade, you get profits in terrorism, you get profits, that's how Lloyd's of London, like you referenced, makes money. As long as there's terrorists in the Middle East, Lloyd's is making a hand over fist. So they look for ways that they can they get it through monopolies. Trump's going after the beef cartel right now. Monopoly, lower the supply, increase the price. People eat less and pay more. I mean, these are basic questions of how you operate to maximize your financial profit, not the long-term interests of a nation or the spiritual and physical well-being of a population.
But they don't, Mike, they don't understand that sooner or later it comes for every man, right? So the more corruption that you have in the system, the more self-dealing that you have that isn't holistically meant to actually favor the community, the harder it becomes down the road in order to have stability when there's some sort of catastrophic event. And you almost feel like they're pushing us towards that catastrophic event because they're talking about it at the World Economic Forum and other places about things that they want to do, and that is permeating across the world. They're infiltrating organizations and allowing this third world logic to come to the Western world, and it's crippling us. Would you agree?
Sure. Yeah, well, you said it, third world. I mean, the question is, what's the difference between third world and first world? Third world can't produce anything they need.
Well, they don't have any logic, right? Because they don't have
industry. They don't have machine tools. They don't have energy supply. They don't actually have a productive capacity.
Well, I mean, I've been in a lot of third world countries where all of the things that we're talking about, both production, even an assembly line and or the ability to distribute, right? They existed, but they only exist for a few. I mean, they create it and make it rudimentary for a reason. And that same sort of stress or strain that they put on it is meant to basically snap the back. It's meant to create unrest, right? While it actually breaks the back of people in your community.
Yeah, that's the question. So you have to have broad-based industrial capacity, right? You can't, if you basically try to consolidate financial wealth into a few cities and then put everybody else on welfare, the nation's gone. But if you have broad-based manufacturing and industrial potential, if you're using your land areas for agriculture, for mining, for industry, for production, if you're setting up the power plants that you can actually expand the new kinds of production you're doing, then you start to export this, the enemy can't deal with that. They can't deal with two factors. One, it's a constant sense of real growth. It's a growth that threatens even their kind of control over economic growth globally. The United States becomes the economic engine of the world. That's what we were. That's why we beat the empire. That's how we basically threw off this kind of globalist mentality during World War II. But they come back. So I think that's the question on a broader scale. And then as individuals, it's a question of how do you pull together. I mean, I start from a couple of things. You need a foundation. You need family. You need a social process. That's core. You need faith. But you also have to have a population that can think strategically about what we're trying to do. How do we actually win this war? What's the strategy? I think the core aspect of what Trump's doing to win the war is you've got to reindustrialize the United States. And in doing so, you're going to see a wealth redistribution, not from government direction. You're going to see people who are working class people now starting to make money again. And you're going to see this idea of financial speculation, which consolidates money into Silicon Valley or Wall Street and all this other crap. It's going to start to diminish. And you start to see economic power change.
But the economic power change that we're seeing now is actually diminishing the power and even the leverage that the United States has around the world. We saw that happen with BRICS. We saw that happen with some of the decisions were made with different alliances, even in separating out China and Russia and saying that they're the big bad wolf, right? I mean, that's the overarching narrative that we get told. And it's the same thing that when we start talking about what's happening in Iran, there's Trump went over to China to talk to them about having Iran, this is something you talked about, abandon their nuclear ambitions. But let's be honest, that's actually not the reason why. I mean, it's not just the nuclear arsenal that we're afraid of in Iran, it's the fact that it's been the proxy and used as the bully stick for other organizations in other countries, even, let's just say it, Lloyd's of London, the banking cartels.
Sure.
So there's things that the American people don't know how to reconcile. And so not being able to reconcile that plus being told that it's because of nuclear ambitions, which I call the sky is falling, we're now in this kind of quandary of, can we survive it? China's a part of BRICS. They're going back to the gold standard. They're depegging from the dollar. You have different states that are leaving OPEC. And I just threw a lot at you. But if you look at that collectively, that leaves us in a very volatile environment where it could crash at any moment. Right?
Well, the volatility is intended at this point. I think that our faction, our political faction, is actually the driving force of the instability. What Trump is basically doing is saying, I'm killing the old system. He's just hammer and tong. He's killing the old system. He's killing NATO. He's killing the EU structure. He's killing this whole liberal construct. He's killed the great green dragon of climate change. He is killing the old system. And he's telling other nations it's time to get on board with a perspective that isn't going to bring death and destruction and world war to the world. He's telling that to Putin. He's telling that to Xi Jinping. He's been telling that to Iran, but they don't listen. He's gotten the Venezuelans on board after he took out Maduro. But he's telling all these nations, look, the era of globalism, the era of scarcity, the era of shutting down energy supply is over. We're now going prosperity, we're going growth, we're going development on a national level, and we're going sovereignty of nations. That changes. Now, nations don't get on board. I mean, China's a big country, Russia's a big country. There's a lot of people that look at the United States and say, we don't trust you, we don't trust you, we don't trust you.
Well, Mike, hold on a second. We're not trustworthy. Like, I spent years in the Middle East and Africa. Like, respecting the sovereignty of nations, we haven't done as a country in decades. We've killed more people since World War II than ever died in World War II, just by what we've been done to overturn nations. The CIA has acted with impunity for at least the last 30, 40 years, right?
Well, I don't know if we would killed, yeah. I was fighting a lot of that. So I'm not sitting here and saying, I think it's a fair criticism to say that we haven't been trustworthy. I think people like Putin, for example, you see this in Russia. He's a big faction on whatever side you call it. You have a very anti-American faction coming out of their foreign ministry. And so they're very concerned about the United States' prowess. And part of this is how the enemy works, because you've sowed such distrust for so long that people have come up with that America should just become weaker. The world will be better if America is weaker. And the problem with that argument is that it misses where did this system of nation states come from? It didn't come from any other place but the United States. The question is, how did the United States introduce a concept of national sovereignty against colonialism, against globalism, against imperialism? We introduced a concept of national sovereignty. And the power we did that was the same thing President Trump has brought back to the White House. Now, the question is, can we hold the power? The only way you're going to bring on other nations and regain that trust is to show the American people are going to back this course of direction. It's a course of direction that other nations want to be on. They want to be on a course of national development. That's the course Putin wants for Russia. And he realizes what Trump is doing is a direct expression of American heritage to go against the globalists, to go against the British Empire. The question is, for them or anyone else, does it stick?
Well, we don't have enough time for it to stick, which means we have to be able to weed out the Judases and the Brutuses. You know, this idea that President Trump plays 5D chess and he takes pieces off the table that they don't expect to be pulled from the table is something that he's done over the last, 17 months, right? 16 months. And a part of that is dangerous because that causes things he can't see to react, which then pop their head up and he can say, oh, there you go. Now I know where at least that is, right? But when I talk about Russia,
like USAID or something.
Yeah. So this is where, look, I'm a big proponent of looking at business model language, right? Using that to actually find the constructs of how political environments are created, right? So in other words, it's called the hold-ons within hold-ons, systems within systems. You were intelligence, you understand that if I pull the lever over here in Iran, and you have to wait to see how it adversely affects or changes or affects foreign or domestic policy in different countries so that you can tell where the yin and the yang is. And you look for regression of 0.1, right? A change that can be point, and then you look and make sure that that's either correlative or it's not, right? So this is am I right? This is some of the things that you would do on the intelligence side.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, yeah, that's part of it for sure.
So when we talk about having this, respecting the sovereignty of other nations, looking at this as a hard reset, getting away from the globalists, getting away from the core tenets of what has run our country for 100 years. There's going to be a power struggle that occurs because innately the person that got into a position of power in the country, President Trump, didn't get there because someone didn't let him. Right?
Say it again.
In other words, if they wanted him out, they could have got him out.
Well, they certainly tried. Yeah, I mean, I think that to some extent, President Trump was able to recruit enough of the apparatus to kind of hold the line. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's partly what we have a compromised nation. I mean, it's no different when, like Putin comes in after what's his name in Russia. He walked in there and there was a whole set of Russian oligarchs that were like, well, we've been running the country. And Putin says, well, now we're running the country. Maybe it's partly you, and it's also now me. It's our government now, too. And there was a kind of balancing act, and that still exists. Xi Jinping, same thing. I mean, he might be the Chinese emperor at this point, but he's still dealing with a lot of other powerful factions. We have empowered the wrong factions in the United States. There is no doubt of that. I mean, look at Loudoun County, Virginia, or Alexandria, Virginia. I mean, you're talking massive bureaucracy.
Fairfax
built
County.
up. Yeah, Fairfax. Post 9/11, just huge buildup of a bureaucracy. Same with Wall Street. Same with San Francisco and Silicon Valley. You now have the best young, smart guys going down to places like El Segundo in Los Angeles to build hardware, to build nuclear power plants, to build real technology, because the idea of software is clearly, obviously, just a means of social control. So there's now starting to be splits on this, but the power centers we brought up were financial control, intelligence control, social media control. And so we've got a compromised nation. I think we've got to break that. And I think we're breaking it by building up what I would consider, like the nation is a body. It's a diseased body, but it's not dead.
It's got cancer everywhere.
Yeah,
right?
you've got to build up the healthy tissue.
Yeah.
Right,
So
you've
how
got
do we
to build up.
So you could argue that in the United States that we're a diseased body, right? And so then I always come back to, and I talk about it every show. By the way, breaking news, Jared Polis, breaking news. Make sure you put it out on socials, guys. Breaking news, Tina Peters, Jared Polis just reduced the sentence of Tina Peters, making her eligible for release as soon as next month. So Tina Peters could be released in the next 30 days from incarceration. So
Political
breaking news,
pressure was
Tina
building.
Peters. Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the marshals were going to come in and let her out. And they still might.
That'd be awesome.
President
That'd be
Trump
awesome.
might still walk in and say, but anyway, that just came across. Tina Peters had her sentence reduced, and she is eligible for release as of next month. Okay. So, sorry, I came across a thing, and that's a really important thing.
Yeah, no, it's really important. It's an honor to be on when that happens, in some sense. That's really great.
Yeah.
I think from what I understand, you've played a big part in this.
I have, and they hate me for it, which is why I was talking about the fact that I'm censored. And it doesn't bother me because people have learned to go to the website, and we now just promote that. Let me ask you this: if the country is rotted, one of our biggest problems is the judiciary has stood in the way of President Trump really doing impactful change. And at the same time, our elections are largely stolen. The media is still talking about the fact that they're free and fair and nothing to see here, gaslighting. The government is still holding that same line, and the powers to be inside of this rotted apparatus that don't know anything about technology are going along to get along because they're so afraid of that apparatus might turn its head on them and bite them like a rabid dog. Tell me how we get connective tissue in there, brother. How do we get tissue in there that?
I mean, it's a core question. You've got to build up a citizenry. It's what you're doing, and it's what this kind of outreach has been going on with since COVID, increasingly with great intensity now for over 6 years. It is an ongoing sense of mobilizing a population that we are in a political war. This is a war. We are looking to take power. We've taken some. We don't hold it. It's not strong. It's not supported. The columns of power, the judiciary, the Congress, the media, the academics, the academy are completely failing the country. We're going to have to rebuild these. You cannot, here's the challenge. Right now, we're very decentralized, right? You've got your operation. I've got my operation. Everybody's got an operation. We're reaching millions and millions and hundreds of millions of people in the United States and around the world. The question then comes in, okay, where are the central institutions? And we're going to have to start rebuilding these institutions. And I don't exactly know how that's going to happen. The only way I can see that happening is we rebuild a patriotic class within the elite. And that means building up people that have gained their wealth not by parasiting off the population, but have actually made their money off of building up the industrial capacity, the productive capacity of the country, of the people, of the citizens. This was always the question. This was the question of George Westinghouse versus J.P. Morgan. Same fight. And ultimately, Morgan won that fight.
Yes.
but it's a question that we have got to get back to today. And if we do it, then I think we can hold power long term, because our story, our commitments, our principles are far more compelling. But for 50, 60 years, our principles have really not been accessible. They have not been available to the population. You know, Reagan did a decent job, but he was shot within 100 days. And the administration was sorely compromised by the Bush faction and everything else.
Because that was the point of chaos. I read a book about this, by the way, that said that they needed him to be shot and out of commission for a certain period of time so they could replace apparatuses and use those points in order to create those apparatus, those shiftings, so they'd have more power in those positions.
Story I've heard from people that worked with the administration at that time was that Reagan had a whole long list of economic initiatives he was planning to take to get the country back on the right footing. But a lot of that was basically pushed aside with the shot. He had to basically maintain just political control because he was under such duress after that shot.
Well, and that would lead you to some of the things that have happened to President Trump, you know, somebody trying to take his life over and over and over again. Obviously we had the White House Correspondents' Dinner, same thing. And I don't want to get into the weeds about that because frankly, then we have conspiracy theories and well, it is, Club Evil is out there doing their thing is really what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, I think that the enemy's out there. I don't think there's any lone assassins, but they've also created a culture and a climate by which identifying how that assassin was deployed. They've got so many they've studied social media so in depth to know how to be able to trigger and provoke certain people that I think the enemy has basically set themselves up for this kind of intimidation.
Well, it definitely takes someone like me and puts me in a position where I got to outthink the bad guys, right? I mean, I thermal cameras and do all sorts of stuff and put in trap doors and things that are in the woods. I mean, I feel like I almost live in like Rambo's quarter, right? You just got to make sure you're completely protected. And then when you find out that someone actually breached that barrier, you can't say anything about it because you have to figure out if they do it again, right? It's crazy how much evil is out there right now. And I just said something I wasn't supposed to say, and I'm going to get a call from someone on saying that. All right, so let's talk about this, the Core 5 sovereign nation model.
Sure. Go ahead.
So walk me through. So I want to say this first. I don't see Russia the same way other people see it. I think the people in Russia holistically are Russian. Would you say that? Right? It's not.
To a large extent, yeah.
It's not a diluted population. In other words, you don't have a bunch of Somalis running around Russia.
No. I mean, there's a broad ethnic diversity, but they're all Russians. Yeah.
One thing you can say about Russians is they're also highly intelligent. So if you look at the average IQ, they're very smart.
Great education.
Right?
Great education system.
So they don't have the dilution problem of stupid people, retards, that we have in the United States. Like we have a retarded problem, and they're put in positions of power and authority here. That doesn't happen in Russia. You don't get very far in Russia if you're not competent, right? You might have to slit somebody's throat, and they might be someone that has that you're like a 115 IQ, they're at a 116, but you're not going to get very far inside of the Russian apparatus if you're not smart.
Yeah, they're very smart, very well educated, some of the great scientific tradition. They just have a long legacy of a lack of real economic advancement and innovation, agenda where they really push to grow. They don't have that as a cultural reflex the way we do.
So then how do we embrace it? Because I don't think we have and maybe I'm just reading too far into the dichotomy of how we can actually get to a place where we can have peace, right? And not the peace that we talk about, like we're just not shooting at each other. That's not enough, right?
No, it's not enough.
How do we get to a place where we have peace? And so I look at it and I go, well, we have to respect this. We have to respect Russia for what they are. And I don't think we've relegated them to Club Evil. And we just talked about the fact that the United States has done some rather terrible things. And so has Russia. But as we speak, we only speak about Russia being the terrible one, not the United States. How do we reconcile that to where we can get to the table and say, because there has to be reconciliation, right?
I mean, I think that's happening. When I talk to younger generations, the level of change in orientation from the old Cold Warrior mentality is huge. It's huge. So I think people see Russia Many people see the population of Russia as, I mean, obviously nation-to-state competition exists at peer level, and Russia is at a peer level in many ways. It's not the gas station that Obama called it. So you're going to have competitive aspects with Russia, with China, with India. Those are probably the three main competitors that we've got in the 21st century, and that's going to continue. I think that's why when Trump put out, you mentioned it at the beginning of this segment here on the Core 5, his national security strategy, when it came out, there was a leak of a broader, longer document that put emphasis on a Core 5, basically saying we're going to scrap the G7 because Europe has become irrelevant in many ways. And the nations which have relevance and are of growing relevance are the US with Russia, China, India, and Japan. That was the Core 5. And the first thing on that agenda was going to be Middle East security. And that's ultimately what I think Trump is provoking. He's provoking this question. And that's really why, I mean, there's many reasons why they pushed for war with Russia, which is what the Ukraine war was. This was instigated and provoked and planned long term. But I think the younger generation sees the possibilities. I think there are factions in Russia that see the possibilities of economic collaboration with the United States. And if you really think about it, if you put the US and Russia together, talk about having to bring China on board on more of our terms, which is important. Because bringing China on our terms of trade goes back to what was intended after World War II. That instead of having trade that can be dominated by state-backed corporations, you now have to have trade based on fair levels. If you want to subsidize a corporation after World War II under the initial intent of what the economic system was supposed to be, you can't export with state-backed and subsidized companies. You can build up your industries.
But the problem with doing that in China is that would create hyperinflation, and they don't have the structure in place that would not collapse things around them in China.
Oh, it's not going to happen fast. It's going to happen. But just like if Trump moved really aggressively on financial reforms, it would crash the system because you've got so much money into these speculative areas. What Besson and his team are doing is slowly diminishing the speculative window, just slowly.
Which, by the way, is making the stock market more volatile, so you can make more opportunities, because it's like it go at 10% up and down.
Yeah,
so
because the stock market's only this top layer of speculation. There are so many other private hidden layers. So you do the same thing in China, and China's getting that message. We're saying, look, right now they're trying to just mass exports, and they're basically subsidizing those because they've got to keep people employed. They've set themselves up with a difficult challenge. If they increase local consumption, domestic consumption in China, which is very low, then the Chinese government worries, well, are we going to be able to maintain control? And China's deep-seated fear is that every time they unify the country, prosperity ensues, they get some control, and then the country breaks apart again. Because there's not an intrinsic sense that everybody is Han Chinese or is Chinese in the way we might think of a nation state. It's much more almost like Europe. There's a tendency to balkanize in China within Chinese own historical culture. So this is the biggest concern that, of a lot of the Chinese leadership, is how do we hold this thing together and not have it, fall apart on us again?
Well,
they take a lot of efforts.
But that's why they're so, they run so. But this is a fascinating conversation because I rarely get to talk to someone that understands what I'm saying fully. Like that, and then most people say, "Holy shit, Joe, how did you know about that? How did you know about that? Like, how are you talking about how these things?" I'm a walking encyclopedia of worthless information. You just happen to be able to open it up. So thank you. So when we talk about China specifically in the United States, and this is, I'm asking this question because I think you have an immense amount of knowledge towards this. But you talked about China having the ability to hold it all together. That's why they're so fearful of the United States. The people of China love Americans. They love America. They love Trump. The leadership is afraid of Trump because of what it means to be held accountable for so long. For the last 30 years, been the Wild Wild West, right? They can steal patents, do things, rebuild things.
Yeah. They've milked globalization. They've milked it, and they've made some internal reforms. So they built up a huge amount of reserves and wealth, and that turned them into a bunch of billionaire communist princelings.
Yes.
But then 2008, 2009, with the great financial crash, China said, okay, we've got to start to build up our own industrial capacity. So they built the most advanced modern infrastructure system in the world. I mean, from local, citywide industrial ecosystems to nationwide industrial ecosystems. So but they've kept wages really low while they've done this.
Yeah.
So they've built up this massive industrial strong state, but a population that's still, one of their prime ministers who's now passed said in, I think, 2020, 2021, about 600 million of them are still living on less than $5 a day. So that's
and we think that there's a billion of them, but there's probably only around 800, 850.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to kind of temper it, maybe temper his numbers, but temper the full numbers. So so China's done this. They can see that there's instability there. They're smart enough to see it. The question, though, is that the offer we're making of a revival of the true United States, a revival of what I would call the American system, what Hamilton adopted, what Lincoln used, what McKinley used, what FDR used, industrial development of the nation, scientific advancement, the Manhattan Project, Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace, these kinds of the Apollo program, these kinds of projects and developments, and a way of organizing your banking and credit systems, the American system. If we're making that offer to China, to Russia, to India, to Brazil, to Mexico, Mexico's looking at it, right? Mexico's looking at it and they're going, yeah, but we've got this narco problem. So we just indicted, the governor of Sinaloa, the sitting governor of Mexico State, Sinaloa. We just indicted him for working with the narcos. He's a close partner and friend politically of the current Mexican president. So there's tension there, but we're saying, look, you guys have to choose. The question we have in the United States is if we want these changes, if we want to clean up Mexico from the narcos and turn it into a viable neighbor, we can do the same thing can be done in Brazil and Argentina. The way China threw off their emperor was a guy named Sun Yat-sen. Sun Yat-sen was educated in Hawaii. He was a Christian. And he
I told you I got worthless information in my brain. Keep going. Tell these people about it.
He brought the American system principles to China and overthrew their emperor. That was the whole nationalist versus communist in China. It wasn't just nationalist like Wall Street or British capitalists. This was the American system outlook coming directly in. You can go through other examples. My point being is that us reviving this has huge, huge potentials for other countries to jump on. My concern is that we have to make sure we develop a citizenry in the United States, which is what your show, your community are part of, a big part of, especially in Colorado, is to make sure that we actually have the potential to have a citizenry that can respond to this and recognize that this is what we're doing. And if we do it, other nations will get on board because this is the true America.
So I'm just going to now be let me just be the arbiter of reality, like the way that the Americans see it, right? And it's to be Democrat, Republican, Independent. This is the tsunami. It's pulling back, right? So you have this pullback that happens, and the American people don't trust it. Right now they have $5 gas. Their groceries are up. By the way, that happened in the Biden administration. It didn't happen in the Trump administration. This is what it came to roost, right? And they knew what they were doing in the Biden administration, and they knew that there was no appetite for another Democrat president. They just knew, right? Mm-hmm. And so they put some triggers in place, including what they did with the Fed chair in order to not lower rates that kind of affected the ability for people to get access to capital, and it just made everything more expensive, right? And you can see the shrinking of the job pool. So there's a lot of things that are happening right now. The American people don't trust it. All they see in their brain, right, is $5 gas. That's all they're seeing. And that eggs cost $4. And they're trying to run away from it. And then they look at their taxes and they're like, well, 56 cents on every dollar. I got 44 cents that I can operate off of. And then they hear about what's happening in Minnesota, billions of dollars going to some sort of Somali Iraq has a higher IQ than those people, right? So you got all this stuff that's happening all at the same time, and nobody gets arrested. Mike, nobody gets arrested. Nobody goes to jail. Nobody, it's as if it didn't happen, right? And we're sitting here waiting for there to be that wave to come back in. And there's a lack of communication inside of our government to tell people this is what we're up against and this is what we can expect to have happen. And even the analysts are silent right now. which has created some angst inside of our community. So how do we address that? I just threw a lot at you, but I mean, do you think that what I'm saying is wrong about how the American people see it and the lack of trust? And why isn't there some transparency?
Yeah, so there are two things. I think people do see, I think there's a lot of people who are having that reaction. I think that that's just the way, I mean, but I think Americans walk and chew gum, okay? So I think that a lot of people have that reaction because, look, we've been in a reactionary mode for a long time. People have been pissed and angry about things and seeing a nation get, you know, you've been watching this nation go off a cliff for like 40 years, just get worse and worse and worse. And so the tendency to complain, to see the problems are just right there. And that's fine. People should have that. They should have a sense of like, I'm not trusting this is the golden age yet. I still see this as we could be right back in the pit we were in.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think people are aware, and there's a deeper sense in the minds of the American people, average citizen, that what Trump is doing is big. And there is a lack of transparency. But I mean, if you are looking for what's going on, then you know that there was an FBI 22 people indicted and Leering centers shut down all over, Minnesota, Minneapolis, Mogadishu, just in the last month. That there are
one state, Mike, one state.
Right.
That same thing's in all 50 states. We doge the country. We can reduce taxes by as much as 25%.
Yeah, I mean, doge over. The main question is going to be, take, for example, these statistics. Manufacturing wages went down $1,000 for a manufacturing worker for the year during Biden's 4 years. For Trump, in the last 15 months, they've gone up like $2,400. So there are real positive gains in certain key areas. But these things take time. I mean, look, gas prices would be higher under Biden right now. With no war with Russia, we'd be in a conflict, or Harris, whatever, Kamala. You'd have green energy agenda, you'd have $5, $6 gas, and it'd be a catastrophe. So I think that's part of just the dynamic. But I think people know what Trump is doing is bigger on a structural level, and they are taking on the immigration questions. It's not as big as we want it to be, but they're hiring people right now, as it's reported, of a crack team that are not only going to deal with immigration fraud, but denaturalization directly. So I think there's a number of steps being taken that we are building up a system that's going to clean out this racket, whether it's the Somali racket, whether it's a massive level of like Indian immigration fraud, which H-1B visas, all these other questions.
It's everywhere.
The student fraud, visa fraud, there's a lot of it. We're setting up a structure by which we can deal with it and deal with it effectively, not with high publicity. I mean, I don't think Trump liked the massive publicity. I think he wants to build the kind of apparatus that cleans this thing up as he rebuilds the healthy tissue of the country. So you got to carve out the bad tissue, but you've also got to build up the healthy.
Well, the bad tissue, frankly, that is stopping the good tissue from growing is your judiciary, right? Is bad judges, because that in essence has been the fall of I mean, look, the Roman Empire fell because of the judiciary of sorts, right? I mean, and the judge has been around for 2,000 years. It's not a new concept.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Some of what we're operating today is under Roman law, and that's the problem, yeah.
And so, but this collapse that happens over time, as I like to say, the free pass. The free passes have gotten so big that now the only people that get persecuted are people that are good people like Tina Peters, and political persecutions like we saw with the J6ers. All the other ones just get let out. Oh, you kill someone, you get 2 years. Go back out there and kill somebody else, right? Yep. So our system is lopsided, right?
Yep, the guy I worked with, LaRouche, was put into prison by the feds for 5 years on a 15-year sentence, and it was just total political persecution. That was in 1989, 1988.
Well, you don't even look like you're old enough to be in that position.
Well, I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't involved then. That was just the guy. I ended up working with him after he was a convicted felon, so.
Yeah. Well,
so, I mean, that's my sense is that this system has been deeply corrupt. One of the guys that was targeting him for prosecution was Robert Mueller. I mean, this is not, the problem is that people people want to believe that everything's functioning, right? So you can ignore. Then when you get blackpilled and realize nothing's functioning the way you thought it was, now you see problem everywhere. And the question is that you have to both see the problem, and then we have to I think, foster. This is what leadership is, right? This is why Trump's good at what he does. Leadership is giving people a sense, yeah, you see all the problems, but we are going to keep building up the solution. We are going to march in the right direction and build up a strategy to win. Because that's the question. You can't win by screaming how bad and awful the enemy is. It's like what Ulysses S. Grant said. Stop telling me what the enemy's doing and start telling me what we're doing to the enemy.
It's amazing that you say that. I'm running for state chair for the Republican Party, which is completely in shambles, doesn't even have an office. And everyone else, when I sat on a debate last night, I'm sitting here listening to them. They're like, the problem is nobody trusts us. The idea of looking in the rearview mirror, if you're always looking in the rearview mirror, you can't see jack out your front window, right? You don't even have your lights on, and it's after dark. And so you're likely to run over something or not accomplish anything. So I'm like, all right, here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. And it's foreign to most people. Like solving problems and working the problem and ignoring
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
it's foreign. It's a foreign because either you just go along with the ride, or you see everything's fucked up and there's no way to solve it. So the idea that we actually see problems and we're going to solve it is like a different way of thinking than Americans. But that's the culture we have to recreate. That was the culture of America in the 19th century. That's how America came into existence.
You got to crack the whip, man. Work the problem. Work the problem. Work the problem. Work the problem. I personally, last night I was cracking jokes because, like, you know what the difference is between leaders and bosses? And I was like listening to this guy talk, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then they had this thing called the rebuttal. You can ask for a rebuttal if somebody says something. So I just started abusing the rebuttal program, and then a rebuttal deal. And so everybody else wanted to do rebuttals. And right after he said, I said, rebuttal. I was like, just so you guys know, I know the differences between a boss and leadership because I just led all you guys to use this rebuttal process, and I'm the one that started it. You're welcome.
That's a good one. That's good.
We're going to have more time on so we can talk through some stuff because I think that you and I could solve like world hunger if we spend enough time on that.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. How do people follow you? I mean, I just put it in there to make sure that they put all your stuff in so I can read it every day. But how do they follow you?
So on YouTube, I'm at Promethean Overviews, do a show. Right? I've been doing it once a week. I'll start doing videos twice a week. Maybe start doing live shows. And then, but just subscribe at YouTube. And then on X, I'm at Steger MG, Steger MG. There it is. Yep.
All right.
Mike Steger. Yep.
And make sure that I'm following them too. I'll make sure I go in and do that. Hey, look, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate the insight. And I didn't get to everything I wanted to ask, but I certainly will have more and have you back on so we can discuss other things. Hopefully I gave you good questions, not softballs.
No, it was an honor and a pleasure. I had a good time. Nice to hang out.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
You too. Bye.
So I'm actually looking at all of his stuff as we're sitting there having the conversation. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to read that. I got to read that. So I'm setting stuff up on my browsers. It's a rarity when I can have a conversation with someone and feel like I'm learning something. And so I plan on going back and reading about some of the things in analysis that he has. But we're going to take a commercial break when we come back. Make sure you follow him, by the way. And look, it's your problem if you're actually not educated on things. If you think it's all about having problems and not about solutions, and you're not working the problem, then we put ourselves in the same position where the chickens, the sky is falling and you're Chicken Little running around in the yard. So we're taking a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about, where are we? Where are we? We're in a place where we are primed for it to go from warm to hot. And it's not us that's doing it. We've just said we've had enough. We've learned the power of the word no. And we're working within the confines of what Mike was talking about, like rebuilding that healthy tissue. And the healthy tissue at one part is to have enough confidence that you're willing to step out on the beaches of Normandy in order to protect not yourself, but everything else around you. And I think that's where we're at. So like commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Oh, hi. I almost didn't see you there. Welcome to DCF Buns, where you can find the freshest buns in town, if I do say so myself. Our master bakers teach class every week. So whether you're new to baking or trying to improve your culinary skills, we got you covered. And we can help you bake the cake of your dreams. We'll even clean your cake if you want. And if you don't want to bake anything yourself, we have loads of fresh buns available in a variety of shapes and sizes. Check us out at dcfbuns.com to learn more. DCF Buns, we keep the buns hot and the deals hotter. Buns.
In every thread, in every stitch, Honor-Bound USA weaves the fabric of the American spirit. It's not just apparel, it's a testament to God, family, and country. At Honor-Bound USA, we're a family of patriots who put our faith, family, and America first. When you visit our website, you'll find a line of products that embody our commitment to pray, stand, speak, and act. As the official site for the Untamed podcast, all of our products proclaim speaking the truth with courage. We also have the powerful documentary from Professor David Clements, Let My People Go. Identify yourself as one of the few who are willing to stand for what they believe in. Join the Honor-Bound USA family today. Wear it as a badge of honor, commitment to the values that shape us, and a pledge to the bright future we will build together. Because when you're honor-bound, you're not just wearing a brand, you're embodying a lifestyle.
And researchers, Robin, are calling this both a reading and learning recession at schools across the country. This new report called the Education Scorecard found that reading scores are down in 83% of school districts in the U.S. in the past 10 years. Math scores dropped in 70% of districts, and this does transcend wealthy and poor districts. What's critical here is that the decline in scores started happening before the pandemic. This report says there are a couple factors to blame. One is social media. So according to Pew Research, nearly half of teens say that they are online constantly. About 1/3 of 17-year-olds now say that they never or hardly ever read for fun. Researchers say that another factor is the end of that controversial No Child Left Behind law that did threaten penalties on schools that didn't meet national testing standards. Critics did call it too rigid, but the data shows it did coincide with at least a rise in math scores. Now, the teacher shortage, another issue here. This report does recommend identifying school districts that need more funding and encouraging coursework that keeps students engaged. And this is really key, keeping kids engaged, but also keeping them in class, because we know that a huge problem, especially with high schools, is those chronic absences among so many students. They're just not showing up in class.
So all this was happening even before the pandemic.
And that's what's really different about this. We knew that after the pandemic, there was a decline in scores. Now we're seeing that this was happening at the same time that social media really started proliferating in this age group, and at the same time that those testing standards started going away, which raises concerns that it's a bigger problem than we had thought.
Yeah. 70% and 83%. 83% of districts have shown decrease in literacy rates. 83%. I just want you to know something else that's actually happening that you need to understand, and that there is a large swath of parents that are running away from the schools. They have people that are out there saying social justice, social justice, social justice. We've been dealing with this issue for the better part of a couple decades. And let me tell you where I noticed it first. When I was in college, years and years and years ago, I worked at a place called, I probably shouldn't say it. Anyway, it was a really nice Mexican restaurant, and it was in Bethesda, Maryland. And you had to show up, and you had to have a pressed white shirt, you had to have a bow tie on, you had to have a belt on and black pants, and they had stringent rules. Now, everyone wanted to work at this place because you'd make, like, Tom Brokaw was in there all the time. And I had my own little group of people that loved to come to my tables, and they had this thing called the Cadillac, which was, you had lobster and all this other stuff, and you worked your butt off, right? And so I got written up like twice in 6 months. And I was like really good. I was really good at what I did. I got written up twice, and I'm like, how in the world am I getting written up? I'm like busting my ass, taking care of everything. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. And then, and people loved me. And it was, the rules were the rules. And I always like to bend rules. I'm like, I've never seen a rule that I'm like, well, let me see here. Let me see if I can move that rule around a little bit. If it didn't make sense to me. And I was like, well, why are you being so stringent? Well, fast forward about 4 years later, I ended up leaving that job. I left the East Coast and moved to Colorado. And, but I go, 4 years later, I go back. And I stayed away from the DMV, Virginia, Maryland, DC for about 4 years. I mean, literally stayed away completely. And I came back and I went there and they didn't have any bow ties on. Now, this is 25 years ago. And I'm like, this is weird. And I looked around and it wasn't as sharp. And so I had to ask the question. I was like, okay. And by the way, before you actually went to work there, you had to memorize the menu. And they would ask you questions about what is the Camarones Diablos? Well, that's a jalapeno inside. I can still do it today, which it seems weird. Like, how in the world do you remember all that stuff? I told you, I remember weird stuff. And I don't remember other stuff, which is even weirder. And you'd have to describe how it's wrapped in bacon and what it came with. It comes with rice and beans, but you had to know everything on the menu. I went back there and just asked a question. I started asking questions about, what are your specials? And they pulled out this piece of paper, and I'm like, wait a minute, you don't have to memorize your specials anymore? I mean, look, it was a life-altering thing to me because I learned something in that job that, you have to be perfect. You have to be A player, A. The beat is not good enough. And they're like, no. And then the service sucked, and the food was late. And this is 4 years. 4 years later. And I said, well, when did they just change this? And they said, about 9 months ago. I thought to myself, well, that checks because, they needed more people, so they just decided to loosen those rules. Well, over time, those rules have done the same thing no matter where you go. The standards have changed. People are required to work. I tell people inside the company, look, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. I want to get a certain amount of work done, but the productivity inside of companies has gone down by about 30%. And why? Well, I think if you look at how they've done things. Now, I equate this when I had kids, and maybe I'm equating it differently or wrong, but to Common Core math, which was Bill Gates' big new idea. This is the same, evil genius that decided to do vaccines and sterilize entire communities in Africa because nobody would say anything to them. So you go over there and run your experiments and kill people. And what are they going to do? Who are they going to tell? Who are they going to tell? Give them $10 and they forget about the fact that their baby sister died. But over time, you can see this degradation of work ethic, and you get down to where, the average person has an efficiency rate of, we do it now, it's like 58%. And 70 is actually my limit. So now I'm trying to figure out, okay, it was at 50, came back in, I got it to 80, and now it's back down to 58%. So now I got to put more pressure on it, which means I'm going to lose several people, and I'm going to have to make sure that people do the right thing, and then I got to fire people just to make a point, because this is all the stuff you had to do back in the day in order to have a thriving society. And what Meta did in this instant is they just walked in and they cut out 25,000 people overnight. Boom. It solves the problem. Everybody has to do the job. So they raised productivity. Their productivity is probably somewhere at 45%. And by firing 25,000 people got up to 70 because now they're paying attention. Like, I don't want to lose my job, right? And I believe that a lot of this degradation we have is tied to the fact that we've allowed things to happen. We've allowed things to happen. And so when we start looking at as my kids got older, by the way, and I would coach my son in sports and I was coaching other kids in other sports, I remember when it happened. My daughter was 6, my son was 3, and my daughter was in this soccer deal. I wasn't even coaching her, and she got like last place of last place. And they came out and got her a ribbon and everything else. And all I did is kept looking around like, a what? A ribbon for last? Does it say last place? And they started to do this thing where everyone got a prize, everyone got an award. And so then I coached my kids. I coached my son in soccer. I never played soccer, but I had to learn, so I went and played, soccer in an adult league and learned it. I picked it up pretty quick. And then I would train him in football, and I would train him in how to take care of himself. But they would try to bring over a trophy if we didn't win a tournament. Or I'd be like, get that shit out of here. And they're like, no. And the parents were like, what? And I'm like, they didn't earn anything. No, they don't get that. You don't get a last place. You don't get a 5th place, 6th place trophy. No. Take that shit, do whatever you want with it, but the kids aren't getting any of it. And what I instilled in these kids over those 14 seasons was that you get an award for winning, not losing. Like if you want to lose, you lose on your own. We're out here to win. You get rewarded for winning. Otherwise, now you got kids in that are 30 years old that walk around saying, "Oh, you're not gonna pat me on the back for doing my job." Now your paycheck is your reward. You get to keep your job. But then you say it, people are like, "Oh, that's mean." I'm thinking to myself, what world are we in? You have a win, you get paid. You want to get paid more? Win more. It's pretty simple. But now we've stopped that. We've eliminated valedictorians from high schools, which eliminates competition. You have people that are focused on social issues. You have uneducated students entering the real work program force. Uneducated. You got guys from India that literally, sludge through poop that have a higher understanding of the English language than people we have that have been here their whole lives. And we're enslaving a whole new generation. We're weakening our country in such a way that a bullet won't have to be, because we'll just be broke. Here's who they did to it first: Venezuela. Put this up. This American kids are straight up forgetting how to read. Reading scores have collapsed nearly the entire country over the last 10 years. 83% of school districts are down. Students are now about half a grade level behind where they were in 2015. This mess started pre-COVID with flashy ed tech curriculum, screens instead of books. And then the pandemic remote learning disaster poured gasoline on it. Now we've gone to full-blown reading recession. With everyone pushes more iPads in classrooms, this generation brain rot in real time. And this is a source, I wouldn't trust Stanford, but you gotta trust Stanford. And part of the process is to force people to be dependent on the government. If you want to get rid of, we're not in a capitalist society, guys. We're not there. But check this out. I want you to watch this. This is the building of, as you go through this new, you have a daddy. You have to have a daddy. Like they're gonna make it. So now we have this surveillance state. And now everyone's uncomfortable with the fact they got their finger right on you. And if you move the wrong way, they can do whatever they want with you. Play it.
And remember, kids, the next time that somebody tells you the government wouldn't do that, oh yes they would.
Do you see what that is? Those are flock cameras. Those are record everything. They have them in Colorado now. Colorado, if you go 10 miles over the speed limit, go between point A and point B, and they determine that you went over 10 miles over the speed limit during that time, they will send you a ticket in the mail. There's 20 million flock cameras now under Biden. And there's going to get another 4 million out under President Trump. We literally are being told that we're putting Americans last. And this is how you have to start working the problem. But they keep telling us they're not going to do mass deportation. They're going to make it more difficult for people here. We're going to let a bunch of retards from Somalia and other countries come in, not have to assimilate. We're going to let, Muslim, whatever you want to call it, jihadis. Look, the difference between Muslims that just want to live their life and assimilate and those that want to be a jihadi. I know there's a difference. Okay, same thing as Hasidic Jew community. Man, you won't find any nicer. You won't. They do a lot of good, right? There's also other synagogue of Satan guys, like people that are in positions of power that hide behind good, God-fearing Jews. True story. Make it difficult for them. But we're being told now, no mass deportations. We got 20 million, 30 million people that frankly shouldn't be here. We actually foot the bill. It's roughly 10% of our population. Cato Institute advocates for mass immigration. And the other side is we're trying to do the other side. We're trying to say, let's get them out. And you have the Cato Institute that advocates for mass immigration. Play it.
The first step would be to give up on the mass deportation fantasy. About 1 in 5 Fairfax residents is someone who could be deported or who lives with them. It would destroy neighborhoods, rip Americans away from their spouses, parents, friends, families, customers, employees, employers, nurses, nannies, and teachers. Let me be clear.
Let me be clear, you're a retard that's never accomplished anything in your entire miserable life. Matter of fact, you never played sports, never got a concussion, obviously never got hit hard enough. Maybe someone should hit you. Here's the reality. Back of the line. Back of the line. And you want to talk about the fact that you have 1 in 5? Great. Let's get rid of the 1 in 5. Let's get rid of them. You said it'll wreck the neighborhoods. Well, let's talk about the number of Americans that have been killed. Should we? Lost to an illegal alien. Let's talk about the ones that have been killed by people who have no business even being here. Should we talk about the fact that they get scholarship opportunities that we have to fund and free food and free housing? I mean, how is it going to wreck the neighborhood exactly when the taxes for the average American go down 20, 25%? Because that's what you're talking about. We're talking about handing back 25% of their paycheck, going from an average of 44% to 69%. Still not enough. You should give back 95% of it. And what you don't do in taxes, you do in fees. And what you don't do in fees, you do in cameras that you set up everywhere and say, oh, you stepped on the red square. You should have stepped on the blue square. You stepped on the red square, so we're going to charge you $300. We've made it a punitive society where everywhere you turn, you get slapped, slapped, slapped. That's called a slave environment. Americans get sent to the back of the line. Illegals and people that frankly do not respect or want to assimilate with us get sent to the front. It's backwards. When you have forced assimilation, in other words, assimilate or get the fuck out, you actually have a thriving society. Right now, we have a broken society. And what has been left in this entire environment is pretty scary. It's pretty scary when I look at other countries and I'm like, that's a thriving society. How Russia does things is a thriving society. How China does things, thriving society. Why? Because there's more opportunity there than it is here, at least for the people in that country. Here's what Kamala is talking about. Kamala Harris, Kamala, I don't even know what her name is, says that what they need to do when Dems take over. You better pay attention to this, because if you don't think a revolution is coming, watch this.
Say, look, this is a moment where there are no bad ideas. A no bad idea brainstorm is what I'd like to call it. And in that no bad ideas brainstorm, we talk about what we need to do and think about doing around the Electoral College. We talk about the idea of Supreme Court reform, which includes expanding the Supreme Court. We invite a conversation about multi-members districts. We talk about, that if we win the Senate, which we should and we will, then the Senate Judiciary Committee should have rules that they put in place so when these people come before as nominees to the Supreme Court and lie, that they are held to account and consequence. Not just that somebody goes on cable news and says they lied, but that there are rules in place to actually penalize people for lying to a Senate Judiciary Committee. That we agree that it is right to have ethics rules for Supreme Court justices. And let's put those in place. Let's talk about statehood for Puerto Rico and D.C. These are the things I think that we've got to do. We've got to neutralize these red states from cheating, including blue states expanding their maps. And all of this.
They want to change everything about the United States. And if you're a Democrat, independent, or a Republican, and you listen to this retard talk, the woman that literally kept black men in prison past their release dates so that they could get 9 cents an hour wages. This is what she did. Who stood in the way and stopped and blocked evidence from coming out that kept a man in prison, even though they knew he was innocent. That's what that piece of trash did. And for those of you that say you can't call her a piece of trash and it's political, you have a political difference of opinion. When you destroy Americans, when you come after Americans inside of America and you do so and act with impunity, you do not deserve any sort, from my perspective, any sort of decorum. Why would I? This is club evil. This is what I talk about. We are guests in our own home, and this See You Next Tuesday says, we need to have ethics for Supreme Court justice. Well, what about term limits for senators and congressmen? Now, we can't even get that done. 99% of the American people want term limits. Have they passed it? No. They just keep giving themselves more raises because the system is so rotted that it's put us in a position right now where we're done. So I want you to know something else, that when we start looking at the agenda that goes against the American people combined with the 2030 WEF, the World Economic Forum agenda, what you have left is something terrible. But look at this billboard in Long Island Expressway. And this is from Mamdani, the un-American. So we are infiltrated right now. And I'm going to tell you right now, there are people pissed. Not at the fact that you have a guy that's a different color in there, that he's an idealistic communist pig. Play it.
We are here on the LIE heading into the Midtown Tunnel, and what you just saw is a NYC Health, NYC Cares, something along those lines, a sign completely in Arabic, paid for with your tax dollars. The only thing that I've seen this mayor do is host Eid dinners in Gracie Mansion and put up signs in a language that most of New York does not speak. That is what it looks like to be conquered. Mamdani's base is foreign-born voters, people born outside of the United States that have now migrated to the United States. He's catering to those people when he puts up a sign in full Arabic. Assimilation does not look like you demanding the country you are currently in to change the language. No signs in New York City should be in any language other than English. You know why? Because New York City, as far as I'm concerned, is still part of the United States of America. If there are people in New York City that feel more comfortable reading Arabic signs, they should go back home to Arabic countries where they speak Arabic. They should remigrate back to where they feel more comfortable. In the United States, there should not be a single sign in Arabic except the exit back home.
You tell me. Oh, you're an Islamophobe. This is anti-Semitic, or Arab phobia. I don't know. What does it take for Americans to take back their country? You notice that I don't actually care if you're a Muslim. Assimilate. You can have your piece of the pie, but when you try to take over and force other people to live by your third world shithole standards, yeah, that's not the America that I want to leave for my children or grandchildren. And this is why we say it's gotten too hot. Healthcare is out of control. Big pharma is out of control. You don't control your body. They're getting rid of our food supply. They're dictating what we can eat, when we can eat it. They're putting cameras on every corner in order to persecute us with impunity. You tell me, Democrat, Republican, Independent. I'll listen to all three of you. If you're an American citizen and you're not a radical crapbag, on either side. This has nothing to do with race. This has everything to do with capturing our country. And I just want to point out that it was just literally 25 years ago. 25 years ago, 9/11. They flew airplanes into buildings. And what came out of it is a guilt complex is somewhere along the line. We did something wrong. The only person that did something wrong is these radicals that have basically gotten their grips, their talons into the American people. Go ahead, tell me I'm wrong. I'm tired of giving up to people what is not theirs to take. And I'm tired of living in a country that I've spent 30 years working my ass off for in order to have things so they can just come and take it from me. A rotted judiciary, a legislative body that thinks that we're their slaves. And then they use our own people, police officers and others, in order to enforce their draconian fascist rule. See, the left is exactly what they say that they are fighting against. They're trash. And we keep going through this process. And again, if you are a Democrat, if you are an ethical Democrat, you just want life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, man, you're my tribe. You're an independent, you sit in the middle, you lean left, I don't care. Social issues, I don't want to have a conversation about it yet. Let's get to the part where you have opportunity for your children first. Let's get to the part where you don't have to worry about walking down the street and have to worry about getting raped and then have the guy put back on the street 15 minutes later, where they drop the charges and said he can't actually, where they take a Gold Star mom, put her in jail for 9.5 years, make her serve nearly 2 years in prison before saying, maybe I will show the peasant a little bit of grace. Fuck Jared Polis. He's a scumbag that is stolen from the people of Colorado. Pardon my language. And you know what? I'm sorry that I had to cuss. But sometimes you get to that place where you go, these people don't care about us. They treat us as if we don't belong, as if we're lessers. And it doesn't matter if you're black, brown. If you're an American, they don't care about you. If you're a veteran, they care about you even less. So don't we have to get to a place where we can take it back? And what does that look like? Well, I'm going to play this 6-minute video. I'm going to pray it out, then I'm going to play this 6-minute video. We have to recapture our elections. More importantly, when I talk about the state of Colorado and every other state, we have to have a print. We have to have a red print. Call it whatever you want. The Republican Party is ripe for being the people's party. We're ripe for it. There are plenty of Democrats that want to have gun rights, that aren't radical, blue-haired, chicken little trash heaps running around that look like weeble wobbles, telling us that we need to take away people's rights and treat the American people like they're criminals. That is what this country has become. We are basically held hostage behind enemy lines by people that aren't even American. And the ones that are American, they're a bunch of retards. They never accomplished anything in their life. They were the ones that, the weeble wobbles that frankly were most likely to fall into a ditch even if they never got off the couch. Those are the people that are in positions of power and authority. Money hungry, just evil, evil, evil people. So we have to make a decision. And the decision is, do you want the country back or do you not want it back? And what are you willing to do to fight for it? And what levers are we going to pull in order to get there? But I'm going to tell you right now, if we do not capture the hearts and minds and create unlikely alliances, Democrat, Independents, and Republicans, we create a party of the people. We force the people inside of our communities that represent us at every level to go do what they're supposed to do in order to represent our interests, not the lobbyists and special interests, not the, hey, we want to take more from you and shut up, sit down, we'll tell you when the elections are good, slave. Not outsourcing to outside organizations that are then allowed to withstand FOIA requests so that you don't get access to information. Not because they can use lawfare or the judges or any of that stuff. No. We want people to go into the community, say, what do you need? They're like, I need trade schools. I need better education. I need to get rid of lower taxes dramatically, 25, 30, 35% less. I need to eliminate fees, get rid of property tax so that when I have my home, I own my home. These are the things that are popular with the people in our country. And it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, or Independent. These are all things that you want. You don't want to be in an environment where the cameras are at every corner. And you're like, well, we have to get rid of the bad guys. Well, you put them back on the street anyway. So what good does it have to do if you find them? You put them in front of a judge and they put them out on the street with a $1,000 bail. So it's antithetical to think that this third world logic, which is what we have in our country, can continue to stand while you take away from people, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents. Let me say it again. The reason why we're Untamed Nation and we're not Conservative Daily is because, let's just take it out, we got to be the people's daily. We got to be talking to the people in our community and saying, listen, I feel the same way. And since I've been out there talking to Democrats, I can tell you without a doubt, people feel left behind. They feel like they've been betrayed. And everyone keeps saying, oh, it's Trump's fault. It's not Trump's fault. There's no Trump inside of the state of Colorado that raised your fees by nearly 35% just in the last 8 months. That happened just in this legislative session. That's what they were able to do. Raise fees, get rid of Tabor, make sure that your property tax goes up, try to throw back a few pennies to you, and then put in regulations to make businesses harder to operate within this state. And if you think I'm wrong, why are the top 25 or 25 of the top 100 businesses currently in the process of leaving the state of Colorado? Palantir just left with hundreds of millions of dollars. We are in a regressed state in the state of Colorado, and nobody has an appetite with what we're going through right now. Now, you can make this a blueprint for every single state. Blueprint, red print, call it whatever you want. Make the Republican Party, the People's Party, make it so that we actually do things at each level. What do you have to lose? I'm just going to say right now, if you're a Democrat, what do you have to lose? Tell me what you have to lose. You think your taxes might go down? That might help you. Crime might go down so your wife doesn't get raped or your child doesn't get raped or maybe killed or maimed or robbed. What do you have to lose if you're a Democrat in the state of Colorado and not vote for the Republican Party? If I'm at the helm of the Republican Party, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. We're going to come in and we're going to go sit down with all the Democrats and we're like, what do you want? People are like, well, we're the Republican Party. Let's make them want to be a part of the party. Let's show them the values that exist already in their community. I'm going to tell you, over half of the Hispanics in the state of Colorado that can vote, don't vote. And you know what? They're all conservative. Nearly half of Christians in the state of Colorado don't vote. Democrat and Republican. And actually, we have systems where our elections are absolutely just bunk anyway. But if you want to see that they're bunk, you convince people that are zeros and ones that you can really affect change and give back the ability for parents to rule the house when it comes to their children, get rid of the indoctrination, not have to run away from public schools, make sure that you can do things to help the poorest among us, put in trade schools, change the operational apparatus of the education system, send lobbyists that are a part of our political structure into the Capitol to have conversations with our legislators. And then when they don't do the job, throw them out. Yank their Republican certificates, say you're no longer a Republican, you can't run as a Republican ever again. Sticks and carrots. You want to get to a place where you save the country? One community at a time, this is how you do it. You come in and you make sure that one party comes in and just Wreck-It Ralph and puts us in a better position as a country. So you got that 6-minute video from yesterday? I'm going to have you replay that, but we're going to go ahead and pray it out first. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and more. Make sure that you keep your finger on the dial. Let me see what we got people talking about. This guy hasn't been to Colorado. Which guy hasn't been? Who's talking? Don't denigrate trash by comparing it to her. Yeah, sorry about that. Mandami needs jailed. Yep, sure does. Pedo weirdo, WF figures world, elitist, fuckwits. Yes, true. He's okay. the ped weirdo, I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but yeah, I can't burger us. So I don't know. When I was there last summer, I saw many business signs in Arabic or similar. True, it's happening more now. I won't push one for English. I just stay on the line. My favorite term is effluvium, trash mixed with hot air. Effluvium. As used to say, we can't say the word trash, so we use the word effluvium. We came out with all the synonyms for trash. I've been saying trash for a long time. So sometimes you got to call a spade an asshole. I love a good F-bomb every now and then, Teresa. I get yelled at, though. I don't see Jeff in here. He's probably giving me the cold shoulder right now. P. Ed weirdo. Good. You might want to change that, though, Ed. You might want to change that. I just changed it to like Ed weirdo. Get it? Ed weirdo. Eduardo. Okay. The guy in New York with the Arabic sign. Joe, the guy in, I will never understand the attachment to a party. In my opinion, we shouldn't have any parties. We have to have parties because you have to have something that has the ability to go in a community and say, what does the community need? And different communities need different things. Rural communities need different things. They need to have an equal seat at the table. Which is why it's so important to send to have a party that's so powerful and to be able to go into the communities of Republicans and Democrats and say, give us money so that we can go out there and talk about the alliances that we need in order to make our communities safer and better and more prosperous, so that people can actually have, safe parks and all the things that they have without the grift and graft of nearly 30, 40, 50% of our budgets going to outside organizations, which then use that money to push propaganda that just isn't true. So, not going to do it. I've been that since 1995. Hopefully, P.Ed. Ordo, but good on you, brother. Good to see you. Good to see you. All right. So, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and more. And now Roku. On Roku. Make sure you download the app. We're going to be doing a lot on Roku. I actually like Roku because they can't do a whole lot of censorship when I send you in there to go to the Roku app. And you do have the ability we're going to build a chat environment as well. So you have the ability to have these chats in the new environment as well. I'm going to make it as easy for you to operate without having to give money to people that basically censor us and do whatever they can to cut us off. I'm going to do that. Go follow me at Joe Oltmann on X, even though they're going to censor me, at Joe Oltmann on Truth Social. And make sure you give me a thumbs up on the way out and do all that stuff. All right, let's pray it out. Let's praise it out. Praise it out. Oh, Matt Wallace is calling me. I should have him back on. All right, Father God, thank you. Thank you for the ability to have this show. Thank you for the amazing people that work on the show and that come on as guests. Thank you for Mike. Thank you for the people that can recognize where we're at as a country and that consistently fight and speak up for who we are and what we are. It came to me as pray, stand, speak, act. Pray first, and Father, we bring this before you to stand up and to always speak the truth. And after we're done speaking the truth, Father, to act in that truth. And these are all very biblical principles that are repeated over and over again in the great book. And when we're done, we go back to prayer. We bring things back to you, Father. And right now we're in the bringing things back to you and trying to figure out how do we plug holes and how do we do what's right by the American people by making sure that we're doing the right things, that we're focused on the right levers to pull and things to advocate for and positions to take or stands to make. Father, I just ask you to give us the ability to have insight into individually and collectively what we should be focused on, to give us the courage and stamina to continue to stand in all of this, to set aside petty differences, to not allow for people to create divisions, to bring the people, your people, together, Democrat, Republican, Independent, that we can set aside those specific dog whistles, so to speak, and get to a place where we can really serve our communities and our families and our people, your people. Father, help us that we may be honoring and yet committed to doing the right thing regardless of the consequences. And we may embrace the truth and embrace the ability for us to really affect change and bring our country back, as Mike said, to have more of this good tissue in our society. We ask these things, Father, humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. All right. I will see you guys. Ed, it's good to see you. Susan. Oh, I saw Susan Rice, the good Susan Rice. There's a bad one. She was in Washington, caused a lot of problem. Yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. Make sure, again, 6-minute video. Watch the 6-minute video. It's really important. This is kind of like what I think about when I think about Colorado. My brain never stops. And if you get a chance to watch some of the stuff that I have on socials, please do. I got another video I'll put out today. And otherwise, have a great weekend. God bless you. And stay prayed up. Make sure you get into the Word. I'm going to give you something I want you to read. Isaiah 40. Allie told me to read it. Man, it's a really powerful thing. Read Isaiah 40. Isaiah 40. All right. God bless you. We'll talk soon. Okay, this message is for, I'm going to talk to the people that I think need to be talked to. If you're in Colorado and you're a Democrat or you're an independent and you're just a sensible individual, I just want to ask you, as the session for the legislature closed in 2026, what did you get that made your life better? I'm going to give you a couple things. One, they took more money from you. They now have cameras on the road that if you go over 10 miles an hour past the speed limit, and they dictate from one distance to another that you averaged over 10 miles an hour over, that they can send you a ticket through the mail. And in the first couple months that it's been out there, they've generated $300,000 in new revenue that they're going to use to build more cameras. So let me ask you how that actually makes you safer. Are there less accidents? Well, I could statistically tell you that that's not true either. Are kids graduating from school more proficient in math and science and able to read? I would tell you it's getting worse. Or do you have more money in your pocket? Are you able to go do more things than you were able to do before? I would argue the answer to that question is no. And before you actually say, oh, it's President Trump in office, it's the Republicans that are doing this across the country, I want to point something out. There aren't any Republicans in positions of power and authority, and they had the authority to not extend and grab all the Tabor money and take that away from you. They had the ability not to raise taxes on you, but they did anyway. They had the ability to look at the things that were most important to you and to focus on education, to focus on your communities. Let me just ask you the question, is there more trade schools? The answer is no. Are the nonprofits in the community that stand up there and say, that Donald Trump is this and Donald Trump, they're fixated on Donald Trump when they should be fixated on you. They should be working the problem. They should be working on what's better in your community. For the last 20 years, I've done things. People here that are my friends know this about me. I've worked with gang members, incarcerated men that have been in prison for a long time, the incarcerated youth program. I sat on boards, built programs, gave my money and my time to kids so they go to private school rather than public school, because the education system has just been that bad for that long. I worked around Democrats, Independents, Republicans. Before 2020, nobody called me anything. They didn't call me, they called me a Christian. They called me a guy that I was. But I had a high regard for the people in the community that were suffering the most. So I'm going to say this as I go and run for state chair. I'm not running for state chair of the Republican Party so that I can walk in there and fix it and do business as usual. I want the Republican Party to stand as the party for the people. That means Republicans, Democrats, Independents, whatever we do should service you in the community. So when you go to vote in November, I'm not going to sit up there and give you some superfluous BS like Phil Weiser and all these other people that are running for office on the Democrat side. Here's what I'm going to tell you. We need to go back in the community, make a commitment to the community that we're going to make things better, and that we're going to come back after sessions are done and say, this is how we made it better. And listen, rather than having, town halls that are just a bunch of Republicans or Democrats, or let's just get rid of the radical part of our society, push them to the side, and start talking about what the communities actually need. And I can tell you right now that if you look around at your children and sometimes your grandchildren, there's no opportunity. It's a desert. So the food desert and the opportunity desert and the education desert, it started in the poorest of communities, is now starting to grow across the entire state. Our children deserve something better. So here's my commitment to you. In the Republican Party, if you're an ethical Democrat, Kennedy Democrat, that Overton window's moved over, you just want sensibility, the party is going to put people in positions of trust and authority that are accountable to you. And the people that are in office right now for the Republican Party, if you don't start listening to the people, we'll replace you. The Republican Party used to have power in creating opportunities and making the communities better. And right now, all we do is fight and point our fingers at each other while the people in the community suffer. So I'm going to tell you again, what do you have to lose? Because nothing that the Democrats have done up until this point has been good for any of you. We'll have a contract. We'll make sure everyone that signs that contract becomes committed to the community, not just to, one idea, but if it's better for the community, if it's better for our kids, if it's better for our pocketbooks, if it creates more opportunity and more advantage, then those are the things that we should chase. Special interests and the idea of putting pornographic books in schools, those are social issues that we're going to relegate to the sidelines. And we're going to start doing things sensibly. And I don't need to be the governor, and I don't need to be a senator, and I don't need to be in any of those positions. I just need to go out and find young people that are most adversely affected by these decisions that are being made today and find a way to represent the community well. We are the United States of America. And although the Republican Party, I think, is the most grounded party, we don't get it right all the time either because we stop listening. So I know the Democrats, I know the independents, and I know the Republicans all feel like they've been left out of the conversation. You all feel like you're not stakeholders. There is no of the people, for the people, by the people, because the only ones eating are the ones that go to Washington or go to the legislature, and they self-deal. We're going to stop self-dealing, and we're going to make it so that we don't just become driven by a specific ideal, that we become driven by what is best for our community and what is best for you. And none of the stuff that the Democrats are talking about is good for you. And all the stuff that they passed took away a little bit more away from you while telling you that you need another daddy. You might need a daddy, but that's God. And right now, they're trying to step into that position while eliminating God. So God bless you. Leave your comment in the notes. Send me a direct message. If you're an independent, we're going to get rid of the infighting. If you're a Democrat, and you, like I said, that Overton window has moved, let's start talking about making a party for the people, of the people, by the people. All right. God bless you. I'll talk to you soon.
Rise up untamed in the heart of the fire where the wild ones roam. Joe Oltmann's calling, bringing truth back home. From conservative daily to this untamed fire, we shatter the silence, lifting spirits higher. No chains can hold us, no lies can prevail. Authentic and fearless on this rugged trail. Patriots gather under stars and stripes. Untamed nation, igniting the night. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild, forever strong. Play it again all night long. Break the mold, chase the real. No more games, time to heal. Joe's voice leads the untamed crew. Truth matters through and through. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave